Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
And we welcome you to this Thursday edition of the show. So much to do over the next 60 minutes, and glad to have you with us as we do it. We will talk some hockey today on the show. Dennis Bernstein drops by in 10 minutes from thefourthperiod.com and SiriusXM NHL Radio. We'll get some thoughts with him on the Olympics, the Olympic break, what it means for teams around the league, who's happy to see the break, who isn't happy to see the break. And I also want to get his thoughts on something we explored yesterday on the show, and that is the potential explosion that we're about to see in women's professional hockey, maybe coming out of these Olympic Games, if the U.S. women's team continues the run that it's on and obviously captivates the hearts and imaginations of U.S. hockey fans. Is there a potential for a real boom, the next women's sports boom in the U.S. to be the PWHL? What does that look like? We'll ask Dennis Bernstein, who is fully engrossed in the world of hockey. Michael McCarthy will also be here. He's the senior media reporter over at Front Office Sports, somebody I've always wanted to talk to, has great insights on where everything is going in the world of sports media. We'll get his thoughts on the Super Bowl halftime show, the Super Bowl ratings. We'll get into that with him, as well as what the 2027 Super Bowl coverage looks like with ESPN jumping into the mix for that, and some potential surprises that could come as a result of ESPN and ABC and them being involved in that game. So we'll get into that coming up a little later on. But we start things out as we always do on this Thursday edition of the show. It's time for the big story. And the big story today is the NBA leaking oil heading into the All-Star break. And man, is it ever. There's only 3 games left on Thursday night, and thankfully, that's it. Then we get a break for a few days, because what has transpired on the court over the last 4 or 5 days heading into this All-Star break, as Kurt Heelan put it yesterday so kindly on the show, it's like kids know they're going on vacation and school, spring break's coming up, and everybody's just stopped caring. And it's shown in the product on the floor. I mean, I want to read off some scores from you. This is from last night's NBA slate. The Cavaliers beat the Wizards 138-113. That's a 25-point spread. The Celtics beat the Bulls 124-105. And the lead was much bigger than that at times. The Bulls actually outscored the Celtics 35-26 in the fourth quarter of that game. That's a 19-point spread. The Knicks beat the 76ers last night 138-89. This was a 50-point game throughout much of the second half, with Jose Alvarado exploding for 26 points for the Knicks in that win. They won by 49 points against a team that came in at 30-23. Granted, no Joel Embiid in that game. I get it. The Pistons beat the Raptors 113-95. By the way, I'm just sitting here thinking about, why is Embiid not playing in that game? Maybe there was an injury I don't know about, because, you've got the whole All-Star break to rest. Anyway, Pistons beat the Raptors 113-95, 18-point spread. And again, that's a Raptors team that came into that game at 10 games over 500. That's not a bad Raptors team. Timberwolves beat the Blazers 133-109. It's a 24-point spread. The Thunder beat the Suns 136-109. It's 27-point spread. I had to do the math fast. And then the Jazz beat the Kings 121-93. That is a bad product. Objectively speaking, that is a bad product you're putting on the court if you're the NBA, heading into your big All-Star weekend and all the festivities and everything out at Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, and it's going to be great. You come off these last couple of days in the NBA with some terrible basketball. What does it look like coming out of the All-Star break? And again, part of the problem is this. You're going to have a third of the league tanking over the last 30 games of the regular season. So while a lot of people are trying to use the excuse that this is a result of what happens for the league going into the All-Star break and guys are mentally checking out. I don't know that this isn't going to be a trend for the rest of the season. When you have teams tanking to try and get one of those top picks in the NBA draft via the lottery. And this is something Adam Silver's going to have to answer for here out in LA when he has his State of the League press conference and all that stuff out at the All-Star game. Somebody's got to ask the tough questions here and not be afraid to piss off the league and make it clear that this is not a good product right now. And I get it. Fans will keep paying for tickets, and they'll keep paying for the parking, and they'll keep paying the concessions, and teams will keep making money, and the league, there is no impetus for the league. On the surface, there is no impetus for the league to change this. They just got a brand new TV rights deal. All that money's coming in, no matter how bad these games may be over the last 30 of the regular season. But you have to think about the long-term damage that we're potentially seeing for the NBA as a result of the product that's being put on the court. And whether it's because of tanking, whether it's because of load management, there's got to be somebody looking for a fix. And I know everybody says they'll never take less games. They'll never go to, 72 or 70 games and then they'll be able to eliminate some of the back-to-backs. They'll never do that because then they got to pay the players will get paid less. They don't want that. The owners will make less money. They don't want that. But at some point, there's got to be a breaking point in this. There's got to be a moment where it becomes something other than how much money these owners are lining their pockets with these franchise valuations that are through the roof anyway. All of these teams are worth a ton of money. All these owners are worth a ton of money. There's got to be a point where somebody says, for the good of the game, we cannot maintain the status quo. Something has to change. And whether that's less games, do you extend the season? I don't think you could extend it any more than you can. Whether it's punishment for tanking, whether it's relegation, I don't care. It cannot continue this way. I am a diehard NBA fan, and it is breaking my heart watching this, and it's so frustrating watching these games that turn into, just absolute bleep shows where guys are clearly not in it to win it. Guys are clearly not trying to win. Teams are not trying to win. And the most basic principle of sports is you're trying to win the game, as Herm Edwards would say. Not that way right now in the NBA. Dennis Bernstein talks hockey next. Welcome back to the show. Just because the NHL is on its Olympic break, you didn't think we were going to skip hockey, did you? Hell no. Dennis Bernstein is here. I said he one-upped me on the fashion side today. I wore a nice shirt. Mm-hmm. By the way, this is not the same shirt as yesterday. I know people always message me these things about what I wear on the show. Get over it. I wear what I wear. But this shirt looks similar to yesterday. It's actually different colors in the pattern. Just so people know. I gotta get these things out there because misinformation, I get graded or apparently judged on these things.
Anytime you want to start, Jason.
All right, fine. God. Let's talk about the Olympics. So what excites you most about, when you look at this setup here for the Olympics, breaking down all the teams, all the rosters. Tell me what gets you most excited.
It's like all-star teams playing. Did you look at the Canada roster? Have you seen the U.S.? Even the Czechia? It's best on best. Jason, we've waited 12 years for this. And the lesser games in day one were payoff games as well. 60 shots on goal by Sweden, right? An unknown Italian goaltender making, 45 saves? It's as good as advertised. It might be better than advertised when we get to the gold medal game if it is U.S.-Canada.
And is that, I would imagine that is what everybody is sort of expecting. If you're handicapping it, that's where you go. Mm-hmm. Who's the potential fly in the ointment in that scenario?
I would have thought Finland, but they can't beat the Slovaks. So it's going to be, I think that Czechia. It comes down to one thing, Jason. When you get to the medal round, if you have a good goaltender, you stay in games. Czechia stayed in the game against Canada today because they have Zostal. So it could be any team with goaltending. So it's not going to be a breeze for any of these teams because you know what? It gets close. These are all great players. And there's so much pressure on U.S. Canada to get to that gold medal that if you have a poor outing, like it really puts you behind the eight ball, but they should get there because there's just too much talent on these teams.
Do they take it easy here, as far as how they're playing these guys, how many minutes guys are getting?
No.
When you're playing against a Latvia or something like that, are you just trying to keep guys healthy in that situation?
No, Jason, you can't ease into this tournament. You can't find it like after day one, like when that's it. You've got to start on time, get leads. You got to play like an NHL game, like a playoff game. You really do. Yes, and the U.S. because they won the World Championships and rabbit hockey and something like this, they got the easier draw. They have 3 relatively easy games in the round robin round, so they should absolutely get there. But they can't treat this like, oh, it's Latvia and we're just going to take it easy and we're going to coast and we're going to play guys 10 minutes. They have to play this like they're playing Canada every game.
Dennis, obviously Canada being the odds-on favorite to win the gold medal right now. We've talked so much about Macklin Celebrini all season long, but how much does it mean to a player that young becoming such a franchise or such a face of this league, of his own franchise, to be such an important part of this Canadian team?
It shows how much the game's evolved, Sam. 12 years ago, he's not on the team at this age. He's just not. Like the mentality's changed. You have players who are 18, 19, 20 years old driving plays for San Jose, for Chicago, Connor Bedard. So it's changed. It's changed drastically. It will certainly help. Now, is he going to be a feature guy? Well, yeah, he's on the top line. He's playing wing because he's a natural center. But what it really helps the San Jose Sharks because they're in a playoff battle. And when he comes back with this experience about playing with the greatest players in the world, and if he wins a gold medal, it just enhances the Sharks. But this is something, like I said, the evolution of this game, Sam, has changed, and that's why you see a kid who's still a teenager playing on a top line in an Olympic game.
So we've talked plenty about the U.S. and Canada and the collision course that they seem to be on for the gold medal game. But as weird as it is, I want to talk about the bronze medal for a second, because I think that there's a very interesting kind of race there, especially with Finland's loss yesterday. Do you think that medal is Sweden's to lose at this point?
No, because the Finns now, if I'm the Finnish coach, I'm saying, look what happened when you got Team Latvia, and not that the Slovaks should be taken lightly because, Sokowski was great yesterday, but I think, we were over in Milan, not now, but in the summer for the media tour for the NHL players, the European players. And I talked to Swedes and I talked to Finns. I said, would it mean more to you to win a gold medal against the U.S. than it would against Sweden? And the Finns said, oh, yeah, it means more. So, yeah, I don't think Sweden's at an advantage because if it is Sweden versus Finland for the bronze, that's a death match. It's a Texas-style death match that you see in WWE, man. That's what it is. So I don't think there's any advantage because, again, it comes down to goaltending. And if you watch the goaltending for Sweden yesterday, Sam, and you waited with Gustafsson played, he'd let that team in the game. I'm not sure because I think Finland has better goaltending at this point in time. So I don't think there's an advantage. And if it is Sweden versus Finland, it's 60 minutes of high-paced hockey. I don't think one team has an advantage over the other if that's how it winds up for the bronze.
I got to ask you, how in basketball we've seen how much the world is catching up and how much the world is developed when it comes to basketball around the world. Have you seen that same sort of growth in hockey outside of the strongholds?
No, not really. It's U.S. and Canada and everybody else. And Sweden and Finland, the way, like with Four Nations, Sweden and Finland played for third place. U.S. and Canada played for the championship. I don't think it's made that many inroads. I think the top 5, if you threw Czechia in there, because I do like that team, I think that there's a group of 5, basically, at this point in time. I don't think the other teams, like Germany, yeah, they have Leon Draisaitl and Stützle. But below their top lines, Jason, they don't have enough depth. There's not. If you look at the teams that play outside those 5, they have 5 or 7. Like Italy doesn't have any NHL players on it, so 5 or 7, that's not going to get you in the top 5. When you go to see Finland, even though Finland didn't play great yesterday, their entire squad is NHL players. When you have the other teams with 5 or 7, I don't think they're going to make that much of a jump to get into that group of 5 that, for the next Olympics would be in the medal round again.
I only got a minute left in this segment. We're holding you over, so don't worry. But is that access to the game? Is that the price of is that the expense involved? Why the rest of the world hasn't caught up more?
I think it's just population, Jason. I think it's as simple as that. It's just sheer numbers. And it's also resources. How much money is dedicated in those countries to that? Because, Jason, it's an expensive sport.
It is.
Skates are $500. Sticks are probably the same. And you have to find ice time. I think it's just a matter of resources. I don't think those smaller companies can allocate the resources the larger countries do.
Dennis Bernstein is our guest, thefourthperiod.com, SiriusXM NHL Radio. You can catch him there. He was on after the game last night. I want to get some thoughts with him on something I floated yesterday on the show with Sam with regard to the women's professional hockey game here in the U.S. After watching some of the games here with the USA women's hockey team, I want to get Dennis's thoughts on that as we continue on this Thursday edition of Sports Wrap. Welcome back to the show. Continuing our conversation on this Thursday with Dennis Bernstein, thefourthperiod.com and SiriusXM NHL Radio, and apparently classic wrestling observer from some of what we've learned from him today. Do you still watch?
Oh, yeah. My wife's a huge Roman Reigns fan. So, yeah, we watch.
Oh, Lord.
We went to SmackDown before WrestleMania here in L.A. a couple of years ago, and she became a huge fan.
The OTC, the original tribal chief.
Yes, and then she bought WWE stock before WrestleMania, and the day after WrestleMania, the stock went up 15 points. She's a very smart woman.
I love it. I didn't know you were a wrestling fan. Something else we have in common. I love it. All right, let's talk. I want to get your thoughts on this because yesterday on the show, we had a really interesting conversation about women's hockey and what I think is an opportunity for a real boom, that it could be the next boom in women's professional sports. Coming off of these Olympics, hopefully they get a closer competitor, because having that fantastic finish or a close game for the gold medal will certainly help elevate the game, as opposed to them just running roughshod through everybody as they have so far. But I think there's a real opportunity in that, and I talked to you about this off the air. The fact that the men's game and women's game, the way it's played is very similar. Whereas WNBA versus NBA, it's not the same game. Softball and baseball are two different things. Football, obviously, it's all men. So to me, I think there's a real opportunity from a crossover appeal to bring males into the world of the professional women's hockey league. I feel like there's a real opportunity for it to explode coming out of these Olympic Games. How do you see it?
Well, is there an inflection point? Remember the World Cup, the Rose Bowl? Right? Remember
That's what we talked about yesterday,
the World Cup,
yep.
Right? If there's an inflection point in this Olympics, if it's the GOAT, Hillary Knight, who's played in Jason, she's played in 5 Olympics. Like, Hillary Knight's a star in women's hockey. And women's hockey draws well in the States.
It does.
Like, the question is the resources. The WNBA is in existence because the NBA funds it, right? Would the NHL do the same type of funding? I'm not sure. It depends how the ownerships view women hockey, and I don't see it at this point in time. But this Olympics has the opportunity, if it's a 3-2 game and Hillary Knight scores a game-winning goal in overtime to beat Canada for the gold, could that be an inflection point? Absolutely, because you're right, Jason. I'm not the biggest women's hockey fan, but when you watch the games, and when I do watch them, they're competitive games. And you're right, the style is the same. There's physical contact, there's speed, there's skill to it, right? You need star players, Jason. Like, Hillary is one of them, but how much longer does she have with respect to her career? They have to develop more stars, and that's the one thing. What's the drawing card, right? Does the WNBA have a drawing card? Yeah, right? Clark.
Got a few of them.
They need the Clark to market the game. So there is opportunity, Jason. You're not wrong on that. It's a matter of, like everything else, it's about the money. Will there be enough money backing this sport to grow it to a point where it'll never be as popular in the NHL, but more games, more franchises? Is there going to be expansion? So there is opportunity here, Jason. I think the Olympics could be a platform for that.
Because to me, I think from the owner's mentality, if they see dollar signs, they're going to jump in the pool. They're going to get in if they see that there's an opportunity to make money with this. So to me, I think that's the only way the owners think is, if we think we can make more money out of this, add value to our franchises, things like that, that they would subsidize it. That's that's sort of where I'm
Subsidize
coming
it,
from.
or Jason, take ownership. Like buy these teams. Like the LA Kings, if there's an LA expansion team, can they buy the PHWL expansion team? That's how direct funding would happen. Does that happen? I have no idea. And it's a matter of, and again, here's the other thing, Jason, there's not a lot of TV revenue. Like it's still a live gate sport, the NHL. So I think that will be one of the barriers. So you can't take all this TV money that you get in other sports and fund it that way.
Dennis, I wanted to go back to the men's game for a second, because something that seems like has been talked about a little bit in certain circles around these Olympic Games on the men's side is the difference, I guess, between how they're playing now and what they did 12 years ago. So they're using NHL-sized ice, but they're using international referees, not NHL referees like we saw at the Four Nations. How, through the small sample size that we've seen so far, have you seen that take an effect on the game?
Well, they have a mix. They have like McCarthy is one of the referees. I think it's the international. It's the international rules, though. Like the one thing that I take exception when they promoted this, when they promoted the NBC promoted the Olympic Games, Sam. Like they showed the first 9 seconds of the Four Nations when they were fighting. You can't fight in the Olympics.
Right.
You get thrown out of the game.
Right.
So that's different. So and when I watched the first 2 games of day one, Sam, there wasn't a lot of calls. I think there was one power play. So the referees are staying out of it, which is, I think, a good thing, because there's so much skill in this game with all these great players. They said, so I think the games will be called a little bit differently because the rules are a little bit different for international hockey. But I don't see in the early sample size, I don't see much difference between the way the game's played in the NHL and the way the game's played internationally, because there is such an NHL influence with respect to players and referees as well.
Dennis, who is the least thrilled to have this break come at the time that it has, as far as NHL teams are concerned? And what are NHL teams, if you're not playing in the Olympics, what are these guys just hanging out right now doing nothing?
Yeah, they can't do it by rule. They can't go into there's no practices or anything, Jason, I think until the 17th. So, Andrei Kopitar is going to Mammoth here in California and probably hopping on a plane and going to Cabo. They're just chilling. They're relaxing. Maybe guys do individual skating to stay in shape. But I think the way the contracted schedule is, because Jason, this season's like no other with respect to the schedule. Like, and you thought it was bad before the break. You got teams playing 17 games in March. Like they're playing like 3 games in 4 nights coming out of the break, right? So I don't think anybody's upset. I guess the only team would be Tampa Bay, because they've been on such a heater that you lose maybe some momentum. And a lot of the players are playing in the Olympics, so maybe that's the greatest thing. But I think most of these players welcome the break who aren't playing, because the contracted schedule, because of the Olympics, has really been a bear, and I think it may have contributed to some injuries or some lingering injuries as we get to a stretch run for the NHL.
Well, you better have your ducks in a row if you're a head coach with your players, and making sure they come back with their heads screwed on straight coming out of this thing, because there's not a ton of games left between the end of the Olympic break and the end of the regular season. If you're a team on the cut line here, it's a perilous time coming back from this break.
Yeah, well, I'm giving you an example. The LA Kings, they just made a big trade for Panarin. They've got 26 games to make the playoffs. They're not in the playoff spot. They got to start now. Like you have to, if you're below the cut line in the playoffs, you got to start now. You can't say, oh, well, another 10 games. No. Then there's only 15 games, and the trade deadline's coming up. There's only 6 games before the trade deadline for most of these teams. So you're right, Jason. You got to be ready from the jump when you come back.
Always appreciate it. Dennis Bernstein, thefourthperiod.com, SiriusXM NHL Radio. Easy for me to say. Hey, I know there's no break for you, but enjoy the time that you do get, my friend.
JP, Sam, it's always great talking to you. Thanks for the time.
Welcome back to this Thursday edition of the show. Let's keep the conversation moving. I can do an hour on just the sports media stuff. I know a lot of the audience would probably get bored to tears if I talked shop for an hour, but I'm a geek for it. I've been doing it since I was 17 years old. And I thought, good time to reach out to this guy who I've followed online for a long time, and I'm thrilled to get to talk to him for the first time. Michael McCarthy does a terrific job covering sports media, senior sports media reporter over at Front Office Sports, which is a terrific site, really one of the best sites out there in the industry. So, Michael, I appreciate you coming on. I want to run through a bunch of things with you and kind of get your thoughts. Starting with the Super Bowl, the TV ratings came out, the viewership numbers came out. If you are the NFL and you're looking at these numbers, and I'm sure they're probably digging even deeper into it than we are, just looking at the stuff from 50,000 feet, what is the big takeaway for you?
Probably the NFL, I'm satisfied, but I'm not thrilled. The Super Bowl has set a ratings record for 3 years in a row. And there were expectations, particularly with the addition of this big data measurement service, that it would set a record for a 4th year in a row. But I think a couple of things happened here. I think the teams that people wanted to watch the most didn't make it to the Super Bowl, namely Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, Josh Allen and the Bills, the big market TV teams. And 2, this is the most important thing in sports TV. It was a lousy game. If you've got a great game, the people stay there until overtime and pass because they want to discuss the great plays. And that's a misnomer that people have about TV networks. They don't root for teams. They root for tight ball games. And this was obvious from the first half that the Pats were just outmatched.
And you root for stories. We're in the story business. That's what I always tell people. I'm not rooting for teams. I'm rooting for stories. That's it for me. And it's the same thing for the NFL. They're rooting for stories. And for 2 weeks, it felt like crickets around this game. You were at Radio Row. Did you go to Radio Row?
It was funny. All the talk at Radio Row,
Media Row, whatever they're calling it now. Yeah.
Beyond the game, it was all about Tom Brady not rooting for the Patriots, or Bill Belichick getting snubbed.
Yep.
Drake May and Sam Darnold weren't exactly lighting anybody on fire. Darnold is a journeyman, and he's got a great story, and congratulations to him. And Drake May is still a kid, but you didn't have that superstar power that would just draw people in, Mahomes and Allen, people like that. So it was pretty quiet on Radio Row about the game. I think if you gave everybody a truth serum on Radio Row last week, they all would have predicted that the Seahawks were going to win. I think it was that obvious that they were a better team.
Yeah, I felt the same way. How about the Bad Bunny stuff? Do you think it contributed one way or another? I don't think. At the end of the day, when I look at what the numbers were, and they were like, well, at halftime, how many people tuned out? I think people tuned out because it was 9-0 at the end of the first half, as much as anything. Do you feel like the Bad Bunny effect was that big one way or the other, or negligible?
Well, first, let me just get personal here to go back to your point. Personally, I love the Bad Bunny thing because it gave me a story to write about, right? It was one of those classic culture war stories where you're either on this side or that side and screaming at each other. I do think it impacted ratings. My colleague, Ryan Glass-Spiegel, did a very good story today that showed viewership was off about 7% during the halftime show. Kendrick Lamar had the most watched halftime show of all time last year at 133.5 million, and Bad Bunny was down to about 128.2 million. So there was an offset. However, we have to wait for the international numbers to come in. The NFL is always thinking 3 steps ahead. They're looking international. I mean, the one thing the NFL has never conquered is global, right? They're dominant in the U.S., but they're second to soccer in many countries around the world. So I think when those international comes in, particularly from Spanish-speaking countries, I think we're going to take a different look at this. But yes, in the U.S., it did have an effect. He sang his set completely in Spanish. There were many people, many NFL fans like me, who've never heard of Bad Bunny. So it was kind of an odd choice.
Is it? Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to sort of ask this question when you look at the matchup between these two teams, how much that impacted it. The halftime show being thrown into it. Is there a lesson to be learned from a counter-programming standpoint, that you can counter-program successfully? I mean, and look, who knows how many of the clicks are legit on the Turning Point USA stuff. I'd want to see the analytics as somebody who does stuff in the digital and the YouTube space. You can buy those clicks. You can buy those views. Who knows? And Turning Point certainly has the budget to do so, without getting underneath the hood. Is there a lesson to be learned from a counter-programming standpoint for people who want to counter-program against the Super Bowl in the future?
I think there is. I think Turning Point USA proved it. I mean, I got to tip my hat to them. For months, they were totally silent, leading many people, including me, to wonder if this thing was ever going to get off the ground. Then they come up with Kid Rock and 3 country musicians you never heard of. It was like, oh my God, this thing's going to flop. Then literally after the kickoff, they say, Twitter's not going to allow us to show it because of, so I was like, everything was trending towards a disaster. And then, they pulled it off. This is the first time anybody has counter-programmed the Super Bowl halftime show in 32 years. I mean, you got to go back to In Living Color with Jim Carrey.
Wow.
Fox, before Fox even got the Super Bowl. So I've been in touch with Turning Point USA. They say they're already going to do it again next year. So I think there is a lesson here. If you provide an opening, and the NFL did, they opened the door a crack, somebody's going to try to kick it in.
Do you think they go? Do you think the NFL goes more traditional next year and moves away from something? God, I mean, why not just go K-pop and bring in some huge K-pop band that's got a zillion followers if you're going to do something like this? Or do you think they say, all right, we learned our lesson, we're going to go a bit more traditional next year? Michael McCarthy's answer to that is next. Welcome back to the show. Our conversation continues with Michael McCarthy from Front Row Sports, their senior media reporter. We're talking about what the NFL might do differently next year when it comes to the Super Bowl halftime show. What did they learn from this year with Bad Bunny and everything that transpired from it? I was interested to hear his answer as to what he might do differently. Watch.
I've got 2 words for you. Taylor Swift. That's who the NFL wants for the halftime show. And if I'm Jay-Z and Rock Nation, I'm on the phone to Taylor Swift saying, look, this is a perfect opening. The halftime show was good, but it wasn't great. It got good numbers, but not great. You could just take over the world with the Super Bowl halftime show. The problem is Taylor Swift is probably the only person who could stand up to the NFL and the only person who's as popular in the NFL. Well, one of the things I heard is she wants to get her hands on the rights to the show, which, as we all know, the Super Bowl doesn't allow. You don't get paid to appear on their halftime show. You're there for free to promote the game. But in return, you get an audience of 150 million people. So if I'm Jay-Z, I'm calling Taylor Swift on line 2 right now.
Michael McCarthy hanging out with us from Front Office Sports. All right, let's move to the 2027 Super Bowl. ESPN, ABC, the hype has already started. Good God, this is going to be the longest 362 days of any of our lives.
It's already started.
I know.
Right after the Super Bowl.
It's madness. I saw you writing about, Pat McAfee, a possible alt cast. Does the NFL really want that, given some of what he comes with? It brings an audience, it brings a following, but there's always some risk where you're going to have to be on the edge of your seat. Yeah. Is somebody going to say something that screws up our brand?
I will say this. I think Pat McAfee and his castmates could do a fabulous field pass. I think this will come off for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're already going to have an alt cast, which is the Manning cast, right? You're going to have the main telecast on ESPN, which is going to be simulcast on ABC. That's going to be Troy and Joe and Laura and Lisa. We all know that. Then you're going to have the Manning brothers on ESPN too. So if you got one Manning cast, why not a field pass, right? McAfee right now has the strongest Rolodex of anybody in sports. He can get Goodell, Belichick, anybody in the NFL on his show. I've never seen anything like it. The guy's guest list is amazing. I mean, and he has got powerful friends up and down the thing. Now, we came out with that story.
Yes.
We pointed out truthfully that there will be hurdles to a field pass. I mean, this isn't college football, gang. And the NFL is very protective about who could be on its sidelines and where they can go and if they can wander around. But Pat McAfee himself said the hurdles are very hurdleable and that he thinks this would be absolutely bonkers. So if I'm a betting man, and I'm not, the only betting tip I have is save your money and buy a house. But I would bet on the Pat McAfee Show Field Pass appearing on an ESPN channel coming to you on February 14th, 2027.
And he's kind of made nice with the NFL. There was the time before he came over to ESPN where he had a bit of a butting heads with Roger Goodell and those guys. And it seems like they've made nice enough that they could figure out a way to make it work.
I agree. There's no enmity here between the Shield and Pat McAfee the way there is with Barstool Sports. Yeah, I think the NFL is smart enough to know that he's additive to their brand. He gets great interviews. He does great interviews. He's fun. He gets the young consumer. I mean, every time I talk to the ESPN people, they're like, why do you like Pat McAfee? It's like, you got to see the research. He brings in the 20s and 30s are all like nobody's business.
And I'll also say this. While he doesn't talk about his politics, we all know he leans right. Not saying he's a crazy, flame-throwing conservative or anything like that, but he leans right, and that might make it more palatable to some of those people who are turned off by the NFL, rightly or wrongly, for whatever reasons they might be.
Yeah. I also think Pat has hurt his brand somewhat the last couple of years. He's very thin-skinned.
Oh,
and
God,
he's
yes.
sensitive. And
I found that out myself.
I think that hurts this reputation he had when he was coming popular. Like, this is a regular guy. I could go to the bar, we could have a beer and shoot the shit and have a lot of fun. And when you see him kind of whining and playing the victim, I don't think it's a good look for him. But, that's the way it is. I mean, you and I have dealt with this business a long time. These people are entertainers. They have huge egos, justifiably, since they're so successful in their field and they're innovative. So, Pat is going to say what he wants to be. He's always going to be Pat.
Yeah, I agree with that. Move away from that Super Bowl because God knows we're going to have another year to talk about it. MLB and the mess that is local TV rights as we get ready to go into this season. Is this just going to be a mess this year and teams just cobbling together what they can as quick as they can before the start of the season because of the Main Street media issues, because of, FanDuel TV being under the stress that it's under right now from a financial standpoint, while baseball sort of figures out a longer-term vision for this?
Yeah, I think it is a mess, and it's going to take a long time to clean up. And, I don't want willing to single out baseball here. One of the biggest problems in sports TV right now can be summed up in 3 words. Where's the game? How do I watch the game? I mean, Michael Wilbon was on Dan Le Batard the other day. He said him and Barkley, 2 of the biggest stars who cover the NBA, were sitting around in Phoenix saying, all right, let's watch the NBA game tonight. Where is it? Is it on NBC? Is it on Prime? Is it TNT? ESPN? Everybody's trying to figure out how to get the games now, and it is a problem. And this is something that Mike Florio has talked about, which I think he makes a really good point. There's a big difference now between streaming and broadcast or cable television, and I'm talking about my generation now. If you could go back 10 or 15 years ago and you wanted to go to another game, you flipped the channel, right? It was a click of a switch. Now you got to get out of your streaming service and log into another one and put in your password. It's this whole 5-step process. Now, my kids who are in the 20s can do it like this.
Yes.
If you're an older consumer like me, you get very frustrated and you forget how to do it. And it just, the whole thing seems cumbersome.
We'll wrap it up with odds and ends next. Welcome back to the show. Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Thursday. Tomorrow's show, you'll hear more from Michael McCarthy, my conversation with the front office sports senior media reporter. Robert Lital will be here, the founder of Black Sports Online, and we'll get you into the weekend. Can I make an admission here before we get into odds and ends, Sam Yarnell? Can I make an admission? Little behind the scenes stuff that goes on. Sam and I, will occasionally text. It's rare that he ever replies when I text him. I usually hear from him like the next day. But it's true. You're bad. You're bad about responding to texts. I love you, but you're awful about responding to texts. But that's not what it's about. I reached out to you yesterday, and I'm like, we're going to take a couple days off next week. I did that because I assumed there was a long all-star break for the NBA, that they were taking like days and days off. The NBA's back on Monday. We're still taking a couple of days off next week. I have made the executive decision. So there'll be some best of programming next week for a couple of days. Why? Because I need a couple of days off. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a. I also noticed this, Jason, and it is a credit to the NBA. But my immediate reaction after, My immediate reaction was it's a credit to the NBA. And then I thought about it a little more and realized, wait a second, this is just the NBA realizing the era of load management that we are currently in, and also wanting to not have to move the finals further and further back because they're going to have to keep spacing out games more and more.
Yes.
It makes a lot of sense because you know that half the league isn't playing in the games before the All-Star break, and the other half of the league isn't playing in the games after the All-Star break.
Correct.
So who cares, man? Did you watch some of the product that was put on the floor last night?
Did you see the SportsWrap short? Did you see the SportsWrap short I put up last night? It's a disaster. I mean, guys are already in Cabo right now for their vacations during the All-Star break. They're down on the islands. Real quick before we go, if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Make sure to subscribe to the SportsWrap with Jason Page YouTube channel, available on YouTube, of all places. Shocker. Make sure to go and subscribe to that. We've got full-length shows there, clips from the show. SportsWrap shorts are available there as well. If you haven't checked out SportsWrap shorts, it's an extension of the show. You don't want to miss them. You can get them by subscribing to the YouTube channel. Also available on our TikTok, SportsWrap Jason Page, and on our Instagram, you guessed it, SportsWrap Jason Page. And now, without any further delay, because we've delayed long enough, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell, the PGA Tour's Pebble Beach Pro-Am. Oh, it's always fun to see Bill Murray out there taking on the guys and having some fun. Scotty, by the way, did you look at the odds for the Pebble Beach Pro-Am? Have you looked at this, Sam? This is crazy. Scotty Scheffler is plus 280 to win the tournament. The next best odds are Rory McIlroy at 14 to 1. This is madness. It is, but you can't blame them at all. Like, it's a justifiable number. You can't even bet Scotty. You can't bet him.
He continues to play. You're right. It is unbettable, but I don't blame the sports books for making it unbettable, Jason. He continues to play this, like, inhumane. I think that's the best adjective to describe it.
What?
Inhumane level of golf. It's crazy. He played, I was talking to somebody who covers golf very closely about what happened last week, right? He goes out, plays a horrible first round. People are talking about, oh, is this guy going to make the cut? Is this guy going into the second day of the tournament? Yeah. Plays his D level of golf and finishes in third. Yep. Like, it is ridiculous how good Scotty Scheffler is, and it's completely justified when you have a number that's under 3 to 1 pre-tournament for him to win. We are officially entering the Tiger level, and I know it was different then because you couldn't exactly do all this legal betting and the market wasn't as flushed out as it is these days, but we're entering Tiger levels of numbers. I've spoken to people who are like, at the peak of his run, you'd see Tiger at plus 150, plus 110 pre-tournament. We're not that far off from Scotty.
Yeah, I'll take Rory at 14 to 1. That's the best I'm probably going to do. So I'll just take Rory at 14 to 1 at this point.
Not a bad bet.
Nah, I think it's the only bet to me. I mean, unless you're taking a flyer on somebody else.
Go down the board. That's the thing. To your point about taking flyers, when you have a guy priced at 280 to win it and the second favorite at 14 to 1, you're going to get way better prices on guys down the board. So go shopping, do your research, find a 50 to 1 that you love, find an 80 to 1 guy that you love, that the math just works out that he's going to have a good week.
Yeah. Real quick, Joey Porter with some not so nice words for Ben Roethlisberger.
He broke the brotherhood. Then Seven definitely broke the brotherhood because, like,
that's the one I don't understand.
The Seven dude that we don't talk about.
I know.
Is crazy. Like out of anybody should talk, he should never grab a microphone and really talk Steeler business. Yeah. Because if we talking Steeler business, his ass is foul of all foul.
Okay. Well,
our poor friend Diana Rossini, who was just sitting there, and then Joey Porter starts, and you can see it on her face. She's like, oh, this is where he's going. I'm in the camera shot. This is where he's going right now. Oh, God, now I have to sit here while he's doing this. You can tell that she knows that this is going to go so viral while he's saying it. Oh, I feel so bad for her.
But we love her all the same. It's going to wrap it up for us today. Thank you to Dennis Bernstein for hanging out with us. Thank you to you, Sam Yarnell. As always, all of you at home for watching. Shout out to Andrew watching in St. Louis. Hit me up yesterday. Always love hearing from our fans out there wherever you may be watching. We appreciate you doing so. For Sam Yarnell, I'm Jason Page. Thanks for hanging out with us on SportsWrap. We'll see you back here tomorrow.